Good afternoon, folks. This term in art, it's going to be every Tuesday, we're going to be looking at perspective drawing skills. Or, another way of thinking about it is how to draw scenes to make them look more realistic, how to make them look more 3D. The next two lessons, so today and next week, we're going to be looking at something called one-point perspective. You sometimes hear that called single-point perspective, but one-point perspective. Now let me show you what that is. You have access to this slideshow, by the way, so you can go through it at your own pace later. Here is some Egyptian art. This is very, very old art. And as you can see, it doesn't look very realistic, does it? I mean, there's a tiny bird going on there. Goodness knows what that is. And then is that a child or a tiny person? The sizes are all wrong. There's no depth here. I don't know what's meant to be in the front. I don't know what's meant to be in the background. But in a way, that doesn't matter. I think it's a mistake to think that Egyptian artists were just not very good at art, or they didn't know the skills. I think just that Egyptian art had a different intention. It was meant to represent things rather than show reality. So this is representing what's going on in this scene of the jackal talking to the young king or the young pharaoh. However, later, artists such as Uccello, this is a painting called The Chase. It's a very famous painting. It's in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, where I used to work. And if you ever go to Oxford, do go and have a look at it. It's amazing. And it's a fabulous example of depth. So you can see here in the foreground, horses, dogs, people running. And you can tell that they're the ones closest to the artist, closest to the viewer. And you just get sucked into the background. You can see it goes into nothingness. Look, you see the dogs get smaller as they get further away, and the trees get smaller as they go away. And that's the whole idea behind perspective. The further something away is, the smaller it appears. In fact, you'll know this, especially if you go to a large open space, or even if you've ever been on a boat, that things in the distance get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until they disappear. And that is called the horizon line. Okay. So here's a real photograph. The red line is the horizon, so the point that you can see it. And we have a little point, a specific point in the distance that we can use when we're trying to draw our own single point perspective pictures, when we're trying to design our own 3D looking drawings. We call it the vanishing point. Don't worry so much about converging lines. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay. So here's another scene. The horizon, you can see at the back there. And the vanishing point, you can see all of these strips seem to be going into the same vanishing point and ending where the tree is. So there's the horizon line. And boom, there's our vanishing point. They don't always have to be in the middle. You can see this nice picture of the stream. You can see the vanishing point. Everything's getting, this is a brilliant example because look, the trees are getting smaller and 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 smaller until they get to the vanishing point. So the horizon line is there, but the vanishing point this time is off to the side. It depends on where the viewer is standing, I suppose. Here's another nice photograph of some kind of rugged looking pedestrian bridge. Now this one's a really good example because you can see quite clearly here, there's the horizon, that's where the path appears to end. And that's clearly where everything's converging on, so you can see everything is converging. Converging means going towards. So you can see this line here, going all the way down there, this line here going like all the way down there, all the way down there, all the way down there. And even though the pavement itself doesn't actually in real life get any thinner, it appears, because it's getting further away, to get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And everything is working towards that one vanishing point. I think that's fantastic. People have played around with the idea of creating vanishing points and creating 3D art by making 3D pictures on in street art. Now this is amazing because actually this is just a pavement. This is just a flat pavement. But someone's turned it into a 3D pavement, so it looks like in the middle of this city. I think this might be in Berlin. And it looks like this person here, for example, is doing pull-ups over this huge crevice, and this person's just about to fall in and whatnot. Some really good examples, and this is a fantastic one. I think this one again is in Berlin. And it's just a 2D drawing, it's 2D, drawn on the pavement. But this artist is amazing. He's managed to draw it to make it look like, using single point perspective, to make it look like this guy's falling down the stairs. And there's some Lego men as well. Flat drawing, but it makes them look 3D and like they're actually there. It's Pac-Man. And this one of the world. Now, I quite like this one because if you turn around, that's what it actually looks like from a different angle. It's the same painting, but depending on what angle you look at it, it looks completely different. Anyway, here are some examples of how to do it. You will need, first of all, to draw a horizon line. I've got a video explaining how to do this step by step, so don't worry so much about this now. But you'll need a horizon line, and you'll need to draw this in pencil because you end up rubbing some of it out. And at some point on this line, you need to put your vanishing point, which is the thing that everything's moving towards. In today's video, we're actually going to put it in the middle, but if you're feeling like you want to do something slightly different, you can do it off to the side. Now, when you're doing your drawings, there's a couple of things to make sure of. Actually, sorry, I will go through, pardon me, I got a bit mixed up. And go back a bit. So this is the horizon line, this is the vanishing point. Now, you have a 2D shape somewhere on your piece of paper. What you need to do is connect all of the corners of your 2D shape to the vanishing point, like so. And then fill in the rest of the space using the lines you've just drawn as guides. And there we go, you have a 3D cube. More accurate perhaps than ones you've drawn before because they're going off into the distance. Okay. So a couple of things to be aware of. One, this is a bad way to draw your horizon line because it's too high. This is a bad way to draw your horizon line because it's too low and it's also too short. It's got to go all the way across the page. And this one is a bad horizon line because it's not straight. It needs to be completely horizontal. Okay. So you want it to be roughly in the middle. I would say in the middle third, in the middle section. So anywhere sort of along here is fine. If it's a little bit higher or a little bit lower, that sometimes works quite nicely. And then, as I said before, you then pick one vanishing point anywhere along the line. Okay. So just another example. You draw a 2D shape. You connect all the lines up to your vanishing point. And then using the guides, you create your own shapes. You can end up with some really nice 3D pictures which look like this. So in reality, how do you draw real pictures? Well, I'm going to show you today some examples of some art that year 5 and 6 students have done. Some of them are from my old class. Some real pictures that some students have done of some streets, of some normal streets. And I've shown you different ways they've done it. Because using a street is a good example because you can have the road going down the middle, which is a really nice sort of starting reference point for these 3D drawings, for these really, really deep perspective drawings. Okay, so we're going to be drawing stuff like this. This is the example I've given. However, this is some examples of children's work that I think you should be aiming towards. Okay, cool. So here's a nice example. Everyone's going to start off with either a street or a path or a railway or something going straight down the middle. And then you're going to use the techniques that we've learned to add in buildings. Here's a nice example. I like this one. It's really nicely coloured in. It's not too complicated, this one. They've concentrated on the sky in the background, which is nice. They've also added something to the horizon, some trees in the distance, just over the horizon. I really like that. And there's buildings on this side. And then just a nice row of trees getting, as you can see, getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. These buildings getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as they go into the distance. This is a nice bright one. It's like a neon 80s one, this one. I love it. This one was drawn using crayons. So the last one was pencil crayons. This one was just using normal crayons. And I love this one because I don't know how they've done this actually. I'll see if I can find out. But they've added an effect here to make it look like the car's lights are on and the car's driving down this road here. Now, one criticism of this one, these lines should start off long and then they should be getting shorter as they go towards the end. But not to worry, it's a nice example all the same. This one's cool. There's a bridge going over the river. Instead of using a road, this person's used a river or a canal with a little bridge, and there's a shark. Yes, brilliant, and there's a dramatic background. Loads of stuff going on in this picture. Absolutely love it. And this one, this one was done in felt tip, sorry. This one was done in watercolours. Really nice, kind of like a slightly more abstract one. But I think it captures the idea really, really well. I think that's the end, yes. Okay, so there is a video, I've posted it below, of an American teacher. She's got the most wonderful accent, it's really nice. Of an American lady, step by step, talking you through how to get a picture like the ones I've shown you here. Step by step. I've started it. I'm going to do this with you tomorrow so we can compare. I've started it. Here's my example. Now, what you need is a ruler, a pencil, and a rubber. They're the really important things. You need to wait until you've finished before you start colouring them in. Now, I've just started, but I just thought I'd point out a few things. My line here is perfectly straight. It's not going on a diagonal, it's perfectly straight. The way I actually did that was I measured down from the top. I thought, well, I'm going to have, if I measure 8 centimetres down that way, 8 centimetres down that way, and then draw a little dash each side, and then connect it up, then I'm going to have a perfectly horizontal straight line. I chose my spot to be right in the middle. I'd like you to do the same to start with. If you want to try and a second attempt to have a go at something a bit different, then you can. Then what I did is from one corner, using a ruler, I drew a straight line all the way to the vanishing point. And then one the other side, all the way to the vanishing point. That gave me my road. I then got my ruler again and drew my road markings. I also added in a little pavement just to experiment with. I think what I'm going to do next is I quite like the idea of having maybe a stream going down here, I'm not sure yet, or maybe a road sign and some cactuses, and I might just put a couple of different buildings up and then some big mountains in the background. You may want to do yours like a city. You may want to just have the whole street either side with buildings on it, so it's like a city. And then in the background, maybe even more buildings. It's entirely up to you. But watch the video. The nice thing about having it on video is that you can watch it as many times as you like. Pause it when you need to. We're going to take 2 lessons for this because I want them to be really, really nice. I've done mine on A4 paper. If you don't have any paper spare, you can do it in your books. I understand that they've got lines on it. But you can practice by doing it in your book, that's fine, and then when and if you do get some paper, you can do it on paper. If you've only got bigger paper or smaller paper, that's fine. The only thing is that my ruler is quite small. You may have the same problem. So it didn't go all the way across, and I couldn't quite match up. It's really important that your ruler goes all the way across. So you just need to find a straight edge. Any straight edge will do. I have this tray here that I've been using, so I've just been kind of like using that to be my straight edge. If you've got a bigger ruler, that's perfect. If you don't, just try and find a straight edge, because on its own, it didn't really do the job. If you fancy doing something a bit different and making it portrait like that, there's nothing wrong with doing it like that either. You may get an interesting result. So your horizon line doesn't have to be bang in the middle, but roughly somewhere in the middle, like this chunk in the middle. I'll leave you to watch the video on your own now. I'm going to be doing this afternoon. Actually, I'm not around this afternoon, my apologies. I'm going to be doing this at some point so we can compare them. I'd love to see them. If you could send a photograph, that'd be great. I know that Mr. Snell and Miss Lucas desperately want us to show some art off so that we can kind of show off to the community all the work we've been doing. So I'd love to have some of this to post on the blog, to post on the school website and stuff like that. See, look at that, riding away into the distance. That's what do you know what? I need a big sunset. Anyway, I'm talking too much. This video's getting long. I'm not around. It's Tuesday afternoon. I won't be around that much this afternoon because I've got meetings and stuff. However, if you do send me a message, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, listen, have fun. Draw it out first. Remember to rub out the lines with a clean rubber, the ones you don't need anymore. Practice, practice, practice. If at first you don't succeed, try again, try again, try again. If you end up doing 10 different versions until you get the one you like, do it. I posted a video up of a more complicated version that anyone who fancies having a go at something a bit more difficult, but equally as effective, you can see that video as well. I'll put that in the lesson plan. Right. I look forward to seeing